break down our conversation in two parts. First, how do you install it? How do you install this CSR1000v on VirtualBox? Why VirtualBox? Well, first, it's free, right? You don't have to shell out cash in order to pay the licensing fee for VMware ESX or what have you. Second, there is no official guide from Cisco as yet, so I thought probably it'd be cool that I'd do a quick video on how do you do that on a VirtualBox. So I'll show you that, how do you hack it, and set the right parameters in VirtualBox to get it working on the local machine without the VMware licensing tax. All right, cool. That's part number one. Part number two, I'll be discussing how to enable a couple of programmability features like guest shell or application hosting and so on and so forth, and apply the infrastructure as a code concepts and learn them through your mini lab. All right, let's get right to it. So I'm going to put this link in the description of this, right? You just go there. This is the cloud service CSR software configuration guide, official configuration guide from Cisco. As you can see, there's an overview. You can learn a little bit more about what CSRV is all about, the installation overview and which hypervisors are being set up over here. The reason I'm showing you this is that it outlines a couple of basic and common denominator requirements for creating a virtual machine if you're doing it on-prem in a hypervisor. All right, so let's take a quick look at it. Installing CSR1000v in the VMware ESXi environment. If you go down below, it lists out a couple of requirements. I'm not going to read through all of this, but I'm going to summarize this for you so that you can just get right to it. The first requirement is that, you've got to have at least 4 GB of RAM. You can have any number of vCPUs, 1, 2, 4, and 8, but the minimum requirement is got to have one virtual CPU, at least 4 GB of RAM, and a hard drive. Minimum of 8 GB is required, and you got to have at least 3 or more VNICs. And the type of VNICs need to be the specific type of VNICs, as well as the SCSI controller the hard drive and the optical drive controller need to be SCSI. And a lot of people don't do that because by default, when you are spinning up a virtual machine in VirtualBox, the default is the IDE controller. So let's get right to it. You go to you spin up the Oracle VirtualBox, hit New, and it will bring up the dialog for creating a new virtual machine. Over here, you got to select the VM type of Linux, and in the version, scroll all the way down to other Linux and a 64-bit. All right. With that being selected, just name it whatever that you want, as CSR1000v version 1, I guess. Hit continue. As we outlined before, you got to have at least 4 GB of RAM, so I'm going to select that. Hit continue. Do not add a virtual hard disk, right? This is an important step. Don't do that and just hit create. We're going to do that. It's going to complain about, yeah, you did not have a virtual drive. Virtual hard drive, don't worry about it, hit continue, and it will create the basic VM for you. However, we would have to configure some settings here, all right? So hit the settings button and it will bring up this dialog. By the way, I'm doing this on a MacBook. If you have a Windows machine, the steps are pretty much same. The GUI look and feel is a little bit different. You would have a different look and feel of the graphical user interface for the VirtualBox. With that being said, you would still have a settings menu. You would still have, within the settings dialog, you would have system, display, storage, so on and so forth, that you can configure individually. All right. Now, where were we? So when we are configuring this, go to the storage one, and it would show that, it's regardless, if you had not selected a virtual hard drive initially, it still created a controller for you. You don't want that. So hit remove, hit this button right here, and remove that. And then add a SCSI controller. That's what's most important. Now, this is just the controller for the VM. You would still have to add a virtual hard drive around that, right? Note that, the attributes should be SCSI, and the type should be LSI logic. You know, there's another option which is bus logic. We don't want that. We want the LSI logic. All right. Hit this button which says add a hard drive on the Windows. For folks on Windows, it will be, you know, when you hover over that, there will be hard drive icon. Just hover over it and hit on that. Choose an existing disk or create new disk. Since we don't have a disk, so we're going to create a new disk, and it's going to ask us for a couple of parameters. Just, you know, keep it at this option, keep it as is, hit continue, dynamically allocated, that's fine. New virtual disk, I'm just going to name it CSR virtual disk 1, and minimum is 8 GB, but I'm going to do 18 GB just for the sake of it. And hit create. It will create that virtual disk with a SCSI controller, all right? With that being said, we still have to do a an optical drive in order for this virtual machine to boot off from. So with that, you know, you'll see this icon on your dialog box. Hit that, and it will ask you, you're about to add a new optical drive to this SCSI controller, but you don't have a disk. Now, with that being said, you should have by now downloaded the CSR1000v software, which you can go to software.cisco.com and download the ISO image for CSR1000v. A little caveat over there, when you go and log into the software download portal at Cisco, you'll find two different types of images. One is an OVA image, which is an open virtual format, and there is an ISO image. I would recommend that you download the ISO image. And do it for 16.6, which is the Everest release for iOS XE. All right, I've already downloaded that, and I'm going to choose the disk, which is the ISO image for that, and it will bring it up. I've downloaded it onto my desktop, and here it is. This is the exact file name that you would see on Cisco's software download portal, CSR1000v, Universal K9, 16601.iso. Hit select, open, that's about it. Now, with the storage configured, now we would have to configure the network. So hit on the network tab. As you see, the default VM configurations have only one adapter attached to it, which is enabled, and it's attached to a NAT network. We don't want that. We want it to be a bridged adapter. All right, once you do that, hit advanced, and in the adapter type, use Intel Pro MT server. Okay, and do the same steps for adapter 2 and 3. Enable it, attach to bridge adapter, and change it to the server. Adapter 3, enable it, change it to bridge, and the server. That's it. And now you're configured. So once you're done doing that, here's a summary of what you have configured so far. You got a 4 GB of RAM, 1 vCPU, and a SCSI controller with the one port as optical drive that has the ISO image for the CSR1000v, and the and the virtual hard drive, as well as we also have 3 network adapters. All right, we're good to go. So let's hit start and see what happens. So it's going to start, hit any key to continue that. It takes a little bit of time, takes a hiccup, but eventually we'll get to it. Right, so now the CSR1000v software is installed, and it goes through a couple of boot cycles. Takes a little bit more time, and now it's coming up, and it's setting different interface parameters, things like that. Like I said earlier, it's going to complain about a couple of things missing. Don't worry about it. Maybe the NVRAM is not initialized. It's going to initialize itself, so on and so forth. Now it's in the process of bringing up the router prompt. Alright, now we're in business. We can see the router prompt. However, we're still not going to be able to interact with it without without actually configuring the SSH parameters and login local and so on and so forth. So I'm going to show you how to do that. There are a couple of guides out there which say that you would have to set up a serial terminal and all that. You don't have to worry about that. That's something that you can avoid here. All right, so since it's a brand new router configuration, consider it as your typical any router configuration. If you've done that before, hit go into the enable mode, do conf t, and the first thing that you want to do, change the host name. Host name, I'm going to call it CSR1000v, 1kv 1. All right. I do that. All right, it changed the host name. Next, what I need to do is to configure, how do I access it, right? How do I access it through the SSH terminal. So for that, I've got a couple of things that I want to do. I will also want to do an IP domain name. I'm just going to call it cisco.com. And hopefully I don't have to generate the crypto keys because SSH daemon should already be enabled in that. But what I'm going to do is try line, configure the line, the VTY lines, right? So I'm going to specify. I'm going to use the SSH transport. All right, and login local. Well, yes. And I have to specify the username password, right? So what I'll do is do username, Cisco password, username Cisco, privilege 15, secret, Cisco 123. Right, Cisco 123. All right, and hit end. And now what I'm going to do is see if I got, since I put this virtual machine onto my local network and made sure that all the interfaces are in the bridge mode. So it should have by now associated itself through the DHCP server to my local network. So what I'm going to see is that if it has any IP addresses assigned to any one of the interfaces that came up during the boot up process. So I'm going to do a show IP interface brief, and voila, the first interface has already gotten an IP address on my local network and my lab network. As you can see, it got it through DHCP. I'm going to bring up a terminal and try to access this 10.10.113. And the username is Cisco. Let's see, yeah, all right. So it's asking me to add it to my known hosts configuration in my SSH in my local machine. I say yes. All right, and provide the password, and we are in business. And it shows, we're right there in the enable mode. Show IP interface brief. Show running. And I'll show you what is the running configuration right now, what is the running configuration for all the interfaces, show IP interfaces. All right, there you go. And we can go ahead and start configuring this router just like any other router. You would have, it is available and accessible through your network. As you can see, I'm on my local machine and my IP address, for example, is 10.10.1.11, right? And I am able to ping the router, which has the IP address of 1.113, should be able to do that, and vice versa. So if I go on this and try to ping 10.10.1.111, yep, I can access that as well as my default gateway, which is sitting at 10.1.1. All right, I think that shows how do you configure CSR1000v on a Oracle VirtualBox on your local machine and play around with it. For that matter, you can actually spin up If you've got two machines, you can spin up two different CSR1000Vs on two different machines and put them on a different network and connect them as well. And they will be accessible to your local network. That's the beauty of it. And in the next part, we're going to talk about how can you configure different things that can help you play around with the infrastructure programmability concepts and apply infrastructure as code concepts using this particular setup. Thank you.